CBS News has learned the Biden-Harris team is on track for another historic nomination, tapping retired General Lloyd Austin for its first defense secretary. Austin used to serve as the head of the U.S. Central Command and military forces before retiring in 2016. If confirmed, Austin would be the first African-American to lead the Pentagon. So, for the latest on the Biden transition, let us bring in Steven Portnoy. Thanks for joining us, Steven. And we're going to start with Austin first. Tell us about who he is, why he beat out others that were in the running, why it's felt that he would be the best candidate.
Well, 67-year-old retired General Lloyd Austin, a former four-star general, is someone who is an accomplished military man, someone who retired after nearly 4 decades in the Army, a West Point cadet who went on to greatness, became the head of U.S. forces in Iraq, as you mentioned, Anne-Marie. He became the head of U.S. Central Command and wound up retiring just as Barack Obama's term in office wound down. He has since spent years working as a board member of major defense contractors, including Raytheon. And so he is the choice of President-elect Biden to lead the Pentagon. What's interesting is the fact that he is a retired general, and there's a federal law dating back many decades that says that if you have served in that capacity, you must wait 7 years before becoming defense secretary. Remember, there's that line between civilian leadership and military leadership at the Defense Department. Now, only twice in all of the history going back to 1947 has Congress issued a waiver of that law. The first time was in 1950 when George Marshall was defense secretary. The second time was in 2017 when General James Mattis was named Donald Trump's first defense secretary. The question now for the Senate is whether it's willing to break with that decades-long precedent yet again and make the retired General James Austin the defense secretary. Now, this is going to be a question more perhaps for progressives than it will be for the Republicans, who may wind up holding control of the Senate. Other questions Republicans might ask are, what about General Lloyd Austin's performance as the head of the military operations in the Central Command region? For example, it was in the period of time that he was head of U.S. Central Command that ISIS was on the march. And so these are questions that Republicans might ask. But for President-elect Biden, this is someone who the President-elect, when he was vice president, relied on for advice as the head of all American forces in Iraq, and as I mentioned, as the head of Central Command in the broader Middle East, someone who obviously has the trust and faith and confidence of the President-elect. And you mentioned it, Anne-Marie, he would be the first African-American to lead the Defense Department in that civilian capacity. And, of course, it's a historic pick. Now, African-American leaders and Hispanic leaders and others have been urging the President-elect to make more diverse choices in what they call the top 6, or the big 6, cabinet positions. This is a term that's being used in Biden world to describe not just the State Department, the Defense Department, and the Treasury, also the Justice Department, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services. And this morning, the big 6 of the Biden cabinet certainly looks a bit more diverse. You have the African-American man in General Austin. You have Alejandro Mayorkas at the Department of Homeland Security. And just this week we learned about Javier Becerra, who is the pick to lead the Department of Health and Human Services.
So perhaps then it's pretty good timing for the president-elect to be meeting with civil rights leaders, because he's scheduled to do so a little bit later on today. You mentioned that he has been receiving some pressure to make sure that, you know, his top positions are diverse, and not just that the positions are diverse, but also that his policies reflect that as well. What's the expectation for today's meeting?
Well, you know, it's interesting. The president-elect said last week that he's not surprised by the criticism. In fact, he's happy to receive it, essentially, that it's his job to listen, and it's the job of activists to urge him to act. And what he also said last week when engaging with reporters at a press conference is that folks who are concerned should wait and see, that when the entire cabinet is unveiled, they should be pleased with the level of diversity. And what he's insisted is it will be the most diverse cabinet in history. He is going to be meeting today with the NAACP and the Urban League and the Reverend Al Sharpton, among others. And we also expect to hear from those minority group leaders immediately afterward in a Zoom call with reporters.
And then what else can we expect from the Biden-Harris team today?
Well, the president-elect is going to be meeting formally with his new health team, and we learned about that this week, that the HHS pick, as I mentioned, is the California Attorney General Javier Becerra, someone who served more than 2 decades in the Democratic caucus in the House, someone who has been a champion of the Affordable Care Act, but someone who does not have any direct health experience in his career, although he is, we understand, married to a physician. Then, of course, there's the FDA pick, and that's Rochelle Walensky, who is an esteemed physician at Mass General Hospital and someone who is on the faculty at Harvard Medical School. And he's also asked Vivek Murthy to reprise his role as Surgeon General. Dr. Murthy served as Surgeon General in the Obama administration.
All right, busy day. Steven Portnoy, thank you so much.